In the glittering world of Manhattan's elite, where legacies are built and secrets are buried under layers of marble and gold, a fateful encounter between a forgotten heiress seeking justice and a history student working as a housekeeper ignites a conspiracy 3 generations in the making. This is a story about the power of truth against a dynasty of lies and the incredible courage it takes to reclaim a stolen past. The Grand Minerva Hotel was a monument to opulence, its polished brass revolving doors, a constant blur spinning with the arrivals and departures of the wealthy and powerful. But that afternoon, it welcomed a different kind of guest. Mrs. Evelyn Reed, a Vietnamese woman in her 60s, carried herself with a quiet elegance, but her eyes held a sorrow that no tailored suit could conceal. At her side wasn't designer luggage, but a single weathered lacquer trunk, its surface inlaid with the mother-of-pearl image of a crane in flight. At the front desk, a professionally detached young woman named Chloe offered a practiced smile. "Welcome to the Grand Minerva. Name, please." "Evelyn Reed." Mrs. Reed replied, her English soft-accented. "I have a reservation." The ensuing communication was a painful exercise in dismissal. Mrs. Reed tried to explain her specific requests: a room facing east, a space for her antique trunk, but Chloe and the other staff members simply exchanged glances of thinly veiled impatience. "All our suites are exceptional, madam." David the concierge interjected with a condescending air. "I'm sure you'll be pleased with whatever we assign." They saw a difficult foreigner, not a woman on a sacred mission. In a shadowed corner of the lobby, Maya Washington, an art history student paying her tuition by cleaning rooms, quietly pushed her housekeeping cart. She watched it all unfold. Unlike her colleagues, Maya didn't see an inconvenience. She saw a story. Her gaze locked onto the lacquer trunk. It wasn't just old. It was a masterpiece. The intricate mother-of-pearl inlay the deep, lustrous finish. It was the Nguyen dynasty style, a technique she had spent countless hours studying in textbooks and museum archives. Just as a visibly defeated Mrs. Reed was about to relent to the staff's indifference, Maya felt a pull she couldn't ignore. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said softly. Then, in the hesitant but clear Vietnamese she'd learned from her university courses, she continued, "Kai trap qua ba, rat jep, noko phai la, mot ki vat gia jin kong. Is your trunk a family heirloom?" The change in Mrs. Reed's demeanor was instantaneous and staggering. Shock, then disbelief, then a wave of raw emotion washed over her face. For the first time all day, someone truly saw her, not as a problem to be managed, but as a person with a history. She reached out and grasped Maya's hand, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Chao. Chao Noi Tieng, Viet. You speak Vietnamese." She glanced from the trunk to Maya's earnest face. "It's not just an heirloom," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's a key." Maya felt a jolt, a sudden and profound sense that the ground had shifted beneath her. She had only meant to offer a moment of kindness to a guest being treated unfairly. But as she stood there, hand in hand with this mysterious woman, she realized she hadn't just stepped forward to help. She had stepped into history itself. A key. The word hung in the air of the opulent lobby, instantly transforming the space from a hall of commerce into the setting of a mystery. For Maya, it felt as if a veil had been lifted, revealing a hidden layer to the world she only thought she knew. Mrs. Reed's request, which came moments later in the hushed confidentiality of her suite, was as direct as it was life-altering. She needed more than a translator. She needed an ally. She asked Maya to become her personal assistant for the duration of her stay. The arrangement required the approval of the hotel's general manager, Julian Croft, a man whose tailored suits were as sharp as his calculating gaze. When Maya, heart pounding, stood before him with Mrs. Reed, now introducing herself by her true Vietnamese name, Linh Tran, she expected resistance. Instead, Croft's approval was unnervingly swift. "Excellent. We pride ourselves on accommodating our guests' unique needs." He said, a placid smile never quite reaching his eyes. Consider it done. The legacy of the Grand Minerva is built on unparalleled service. As they left his office, Maya couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, not by a manager, but by a chess player, observing the opening moves of a game. Back in the suite, with the door securely locked, Linh Tran finally unlocked the trunk's secret. A false bottom slid away, revealing not jewels or gold, but yellowed documents, faded photographs, and a single breathtaking artifact, a map hand-painted on aging silk. My grandmother Tra Tilan bought this very land in 1946. Linh explained, her voice a low thrum of inherited grief and fierce determination. She dreamed of a hotel that would be a bridge between East and West. But after the war, in a climate of fear and prejudice, her American partners saw an opportunity. They used deception, forgery, and intimidation to steal everything from her. The silk map showed the property's original design. In the heart of the building, there was a section marked with a delicate crane insignia and labeled Le Nid de la Grue, the crane's nest. Maya quickly pulled up the hotel's modern blueprints on her laptop. The section was gone, wiped from the official record as if it had never existed. It had been absorbed, hidden, walled off. The proof of her ownership of their fraud is in that room. Linh whispered, her finger tracing the ghostly lines on the silk. I know it. That night, as Maya pored over historical city records, a new kind of energy coursed through her. This was no longer just a job. It was a calling. It was the living, breathing embodiment of everything she had studied. Meanwhile, in his penthouse office overlooking the glittering city, Julian Croft stood in the dark, speaking into his phone. His voice was low, tense, stripped of its managerial polish. She has the map, he said. We need to accelerate the plan. We cannot let her find the truth. Not her way. Julian's cryptic words seemed to echo in the very walls of the hotel. His accelerated plan manifested the next morning as an official-looking notice slipped under Maya's door. Urgent electrical maintenance. 4th floor corridor. Security cameras temporarily offline. It was too perfect to be a coincidence. Whether it was a trap or an unintended opportunity, they had to take it. That night, guided by the faint lines on the silk map, they stood before a large, ornate oil painting at the end of the 4th floor hallway. It depicted a pastoral European garden, utterly at odds with the hotel's otherwise Art Deco theme. While Linh Tran searched for a hidden switch, Maya's art historian eyes caught a detail no one else would notice. The heavy gilded frame, meant to look European, was carved with subtle, stylized lotus blossoms at its corners. An Eastern signature on a Western canvas. Here, Maya whispered, her fingers tracing the hidden motif. Linh pressed a specific petal on the lowest lotus blossom. There was a soft, satisfying click, and the entire painting swung inward, revealing a dark, narrow passage. The air that drifted out was thick with the scent of aged wood, dry paper, and forgotten perfume. Stepping through was like crossing a threshold into another time. The crane's nest was perfectly preserved, a time capsule of 1940s Indochine luxury. Silk screens depicted misty mountains, rosewood furniture stood draped in dusty cloths, and watching over it all from the walls were painted portraits of a proud, beautiful Vietnamese woman, Tra Tilan. In a glass-fronted cabinet, nestled in a velvet box, lay their prize, the original leather-bound partnership agreement, its pages filled with elegant script. Beside it rested a pair of jade seals, one carved into a crane, the other a dragon, the tangible proof of a stolen legacy. Their triumph, however, was short-lived. The following day, 2 new guests checked into the suite directly across from Linh Tran's. They introduced themselves as Thomas and Catherine Davenport siblings, and art historians researching the architectural gems of Manhattan. They were charming, intelligent, and disarmingly curious, especially with Maya. They praised her knowledge, asked pointed questions about her work with Mrs. Reed and her special projects for the hotel. Linh Tran went pale when she heard the name. Davenport. It was the name of one of her grandmother's original partners. They are not historians, she warned Maya later, her voice tight with dread. They are wolves in sheep's clothing. The confirmation of her fear came that evening in the most violating way possible. Returning to her own modest staff room, exhausted Maya felt a strange sense of unease. Something was out of place. A pillow on her bed was slightly askew. On a gut instinct, she couldn't explain, she flipped it over. Taped to the underside, small and black against the white fabric, was a tiny listening device, its single red LED, blinking with silent, malevolent patience. The blinking red light was more than a device. It was a declaration of war. Every hushed strategy session with Lin, every whispered suspicion, every moment of discovery, had it all been broadcast directly to the enemy. A cold dread washed over Maya. They weren't just being watched. They were being hunted. The paranoia became a suffocating presence, turning every friendly colleague's smile into a potential mask. Her suspicion quickly zeroed in on Jessica, the housekeeper whose envy had been palpable from the day Maya's role changed. Her instincts proved correct. A few days later, Maya saw Jessica exiting Lin's suite, her movements furtive as she slipped a folded document into her apron pocket. When Maya confronted her in the quiet of a service hallway, Jessica's bravado crumbled into a tearful confession. Thomas Davenport had approached her offering $1,000 for any old papers with signatures. "My mom. Her medical bills are piling up." Jessica sobbed, shamefaced. "He said it was just for a history article." "I didn't know." Prepared for an explosion of anger, Maya brought the trembling housekeeper to Linh Tran. But Lin listened to the confession with a profound, unsettling calm. When Jessica finished, Lin didn't scold her. Instead, she opened her purse, took out $2,000, and pressed the bills into Jessica's hand. "Desperation makes good people do regrettable things." Lin said, her voice gentle but firm. "I of all people understand that. This is for your mother. Now you have a chance to make a different choice." That single act of grace forged an unbreakable bond. Jessica, consumed by gratitude, became their willing eyes and ears among the staff. The small victory was overshadowed by the devastating countermove. Acting on the information from the stolen document, the Davenports escalated their campaign of intimidation. That evening, Maya and Lin returned to the suite to find it utterly ransacked. It was a violation born of surgical precision. Cushions were slashed, drawers emptied, but not a single piece of jewelry or cash was touched. The target had been specific. The antique lacquer trunk was splintered open. The original contracts, the delicate jade seals, the faded photographs of Tra Tilan, all of it was gone. The physical heart of their evidence had been ripped out, leaving them with nothing but memories and a trashed hotel room. Defeat felt total and absolute. Later, back in her own small room, Maya felt a wave of despair crash over her. All their work, all the risk, had led to this. She opened her locker numbly, reaching for her art history textbook, as if the familiar weight of it could offer some comfort. As she pulled the heavy volume from the shelf, something small and black slipped from between the pages and fell silently onto her worn carpet. It was a simple, unmarked USB flash drive. It had been hidden in the one place in the entire hotel that belonged uniquely to her. With trembling hands, Maya inserted the USB drive into her laptop. For a moment, she hesitated, her mind racing. Was this a trick, a virus designed to destroy what little they had left? But desperation was a powerful motivator. She clicked open the drive. It wasn't a trap. It was an arsenal. The drive contained a meticulously organized digital archive. There were crystal-clear scans of every document that had been stolen, and more. Deeds, bank transfers, private correspondence. There were audio files, grainy recordings from the 1950s, where the voices of the hotel's founding fathers could be heard laughing as they plotted how to legally handle the Asiatic situation and push Tra Tilan out. Hearing the conspiracy in the conspirators' own voices sent a chill down Maya's spine. But it was the final file that took their breath away. It was a video labeled simply, "For Linh Tran, an apology." The face on the screen was that of an elderly, tormented man. A title card identified him as Arthur Davenport, the father of Thomas and Catherine. I have lived with this guilt my entire life." He said, his voice raspy with age and shame. He spoke of his father's sins and how his own children were now desperately trying to bury that legacy forever instead of atoning for it. "They believe protecting our name is more important than honoring the truth. I do not. I cannot face you, but I can give you the tools to reclaim what is yours." He was their anonymous benefactor. The enemy's own house was divided against itself. Armed with this digital bombshell, the despair they felt just hours before transformed into steely resolve. They now had irrefutable proof, backed by a confession from within the dynasty itself. With the help of their new ally Jessica, they secured a secret meeting with a top investigative reporter at the New York Sentinel, a journalist famous for taking down corporate giants. They had a story that could shake the city's foundations, and now they had a weapon to launch it. They were finally on the offensive. As they prepared their documents for the meeting, a text message lit up Maya's phone. It was from an unknown number. The message was short, its implications enormous. "I need to see you. Alone. Julian Croft." A knot of ice formed in Maya's stomach. Why now? Why her and not Lynn? Was this a final, desperate attempt to silence them before the story broke? Or was the hotel's enigmatic manager about to reveal that he was the most dangerous piece on the board for reasons she couldn't possibly imagine? Against Linh Tran's urgent warnings, Maya agreed to the meeting. Every instinct told Lynn it was a trap, but Maya couldn't shake Julian's words from that first day. The legacy of the Grand Minerva. Or his tense whisper on the phone, "Not her way." It wasn't the language of a simple villain. Something more complex was at play. She chose a small, anonymous coffee shop downtown, a world away from the gilded cage of the hotel. Julian Croft arrived looking less like a powerful hotel manager, and more like a man carrying the weight of a ghost. The practiced confidence was gone, replaced by a profound weariness. "I know what you think of me." He began, his voice low and devoid of its usual polish. "And you're not wrong. I have been working against Mrs. Tran since she arrived." He paused, meeting Maya's guarded gaze. "But I was not trying to stop her from discovering the truth. I was trying to stop her from being destroyed by it before she had all the weapons she needed." He then laid bare a stunning secret war. He had known about his family's tainted legacy his entire life, a source of deep private shame. The Davenport siblings, driven by a ruthless desire to protect their inheritance, were on the verge of consolidating power, buying out the other families to gain total control. Their ultimate goal was to demolish the Crane's Nest and erase the last physical traces of Trati Lan forever. "Everything I did," Julian explained, "the camera maintenance, making you her assistant. It was all to slow them down, to give you a fighting chance to find what you needed before they could bury it for good." He then slid a heavy, leather-bound book across the table. It was his grandfather's private ledger. "Arthur Davenport's video gives you the motive," Julian said. "This gives you the method. Every illegal payment, every fraudulent transfer, every dollar spent to silence and intimidate your guest's grandmother. It's all in here." It was the final, irrefutable piece of the puzzle, the financial soul of the crime. Maya left the coffee shop in a daze, the heavy ledger clutched in her bag like a sacred text. A strange mix of vindication and shock coursed through her. They finally had everything. The path to justice was clear. To avoid being seen, she ducked into the service entrance of a nearby office building, heading for the staff elevator. As the doors slid shut, two figures stepped out from a dark corner of the corridor, blocking her path. Thomas and Catherine Davenport. Their charming smiles were gone, replaced by cold, predatory expressions. "I believe," Thomas said, his voice dangerously soft as he pressed the button for the sub-basement, "you have something that belongs to our family." The elevator jolted to a violent stop as Maya, acting on pure adrenaline, slammed her hand against the emergency stop button. The sudden halt threw the Davenports off balance. In that split second of chaos, Maya wasn't a terrified student. She was a hotel employee who knew the emergency protocols. She wrenched open the small panel for the service phone. Before Thomas could recover, her voice, clear and steady, was speaking to hotel security, a call she knew Julian would be monitoring. "This is Maya, Washington. I am trapped in service elevator C with two individuals who are threatening me. They are Thomas and Catherine Davenport." The Davenports froze, their expressions shifting from predatory confidence to disbelief. The doors were pried open, moments later, not by hotel maintenance, but by Julian Croft himself, flanked by two imposing security guards. "Thomas, Catherine," Julian said, his voice laced with ice. "I believe the board is waiting for you." The trap had been turned on the trappers. The boardroom confrontation was less a meeting and more a surrender. With the investigative reporter's story breaking online at that very moment, creating a firestorm of public outrage, the board had no choice but to listen. Linh Tran, poised and resolute, presented her case. They played Arthur Davenport's video confession, his ghostly image filling the room with the weight of his shame. Then, Julian Croft, in his final act as manager, placed his grandfather's ledger on the polished table. The numbers, written in faded ink, told a damning story of greed and betrayal that no lawyer could spin. The vote was a formality. Linh Tran's family was officially recognized, and their 25% ownership stake in the Grand Minerva was restored. The Davenports were immediately removed from the board and escorted out to face a barrage of reporters and the consequences of their family's long-buried crimes. Julian Croft resigned, but did so with his head held high, promising his full cooperation with the authorities to ensure true justice was served. Months later, the Grand Minerva began its transformation. The Crane's Nest was meticulously restored and opened to the public as a permanent exhibit, honoring its true creator, Tra Thilan. And Maya, Washington, no longer a housekeeper, was offered the position to run the newly established Land Heritage Foundation, dedicated to uncovering similar stories of historical injustice. Standing with Lynn in the newly opened exhibit, Maya looked at the portrait of the woman who started it all, her legacy finally reclaimed from the ashes of history. This story, The Legacy of the Crane, is a testament to the enduring power of truth. It reminds us that history is not just a record of the powerful, but a tapestry of countless voices, many of whom have been silenced. Justice may be delayed, and the fight may seem impossible, but a single voice, a single act of listening can be enough to start an earthquake that brings down empires built on lies. If this story of courage, truth, and reclaimed history moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue to tell the stories that need to be heard and ensures that more silenced voices can finally find their way into the light.